it's okay. My last name is a tough one, but he's worth it. Good evening, my name is Liz Wolczko, and I'm Joanna's mom and John's sister. I'm extremely honored to be here tonight to share with you what Compassionate Friends has meant to my entire family and me as well. It helped me with my own grief journey and how I have learned to turn my pain into an amazing new purpose. As Maura said, my journey began in 1974 with the tragic loss of my oldest brother, John, who died in a car accident at 24. That sudden and unexpected loss put my entire family in a tailspin. My parents, John and Sally Ketchum, were both grieving in their own way and were unsure of how to guide my brother Jeff, who was 22 and I was 19, and my sister was just 9, through our grief. Several months later, my mom happened to see an article in the paper about a new support group for grieving parents called the Compassionate Friends. She knew that this could be just what she needed to begin healing, and by some miracle, she got my father to go with her. Since Compassionate Friends back then was just a support group for parents, not siblings, we could not attend with my parents. But over time, our parents began healing, and those benefits spilled over to us. My healing journey deepened even further with a dear neighbor, friend, and mentor, Janet. In 1974, Janet was battling cancer, and I helped care for her 4 children. During the 5 years I spent with Janet, I have watched her, this amazing woman, go through true hell with unwavering courage, compassion, grace, humor, and unending love. We had many conversations about death and dying. When the time came, because of those conversations, I was able to help guide her children. Janet was one of the most amazing, strong, powerful, loving women I have ever had the honor to know. She taught me how dying with peace, grace, and dignity was possible. By sharing her groundbreaking plan to die at home surrounded by her family, pain, controlled, and in peace. What you have to know is in 1979, the hospice movement was in its infancy here in the U.S. Dying at home just wasn't done, and it was not sanctioned by the medical community at all. Janet had done her homework, though, by reaching out to the creator of hospice in England, Dame Cicely Saunders, as well as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the author of The 5 Stages of Grief. She also spent countless hours of research on her own so she could present the plan to her doctors and successfully got them to let her die at home. Because she was able to die her way, her death in June of '79 was one of the most spiritual, life-changing moments for me. It was a beautiful example of pure love, grace, and peace that I was honored to be a part of. Right before Janet died, she gave all the research she put together to my mom and said, "Go create a hospice so others can die as I have, and Liz will help you." That is how Montgomery Hospice in Rockville, Maryland was born. It took a great deal of commitment, courage, and love on my mom's part to find the first board of directors, procure office space, become the administrator, and make me her assistant in order to get Montgomery Hospice to be the first licensed hospice in Maryland and just the 3rd in the U.S. My mom Sally's labor of love is still a thriving hospice today, now having served over 40,000 patients and families in Montgomery County, Maryland. Being part of that experience is what shaped and guided me to my life's journey, helping others die with dignity, grace, and peace, as well as being able to be with others in their grief. After moving here to New Hampshire in 1980, I continued my work with hospice as a volunteer coordinator for a couple hospices here in southern New Hampshire. It was while I was working as a volunteer coordinator in 2008, believing I knew all there was to know about grief, grief and the grieving process. When my family began a 3-month journey through the worst grief possible. On May 18th, my wonderful sister-in-law Lisa lost her 2-year battle with cancer at 57. Then, on August 6th, just 3 short months after Lisa died, I had lost my beloved daughter and my only child, Joanna, from an undiagnosed blood clot. I was rocked to my core. I couldn't wrap my head around any of it. How could it be that I was now planning a funeral instead of finalizing wedding plans? Joanna was supposed to be married in the end of September of that year to her amazing fiancé, Nathan. I knew one person I could talk to who would understand and guide me through that unimaginable pain. My other amazing mentor and hero, my mom. On the evening of Joanna's funeral, I talked to my mom. And we talked at length, but right before we hung up, she said, "Promise me you'll go find a Compassionate Friends chapter, because they will help you like no one else can." Little did I know that would be the last conversation I would ever have with my mother, because the next morning she suffered a stroke, and 3 days later she too was gone, just 10 days after my daughter died. Honoring my promise to my mom, in September of 2008, I walked through the doors of the Manchester Compassionate Friends meeting. I looked up in the sky and said, "Okay, Mom, I'm here, now what?" As many of you here know, I was met by the loving arms of Linda Riley and so many other caring, compassionate people. That was the first time since all hell had rained on me that I actually realized I wasn't alone, I wasn't crazy, I could survive, and I felt a calm that I hadn't felt in what seemed like an eternity. Being a member of Compassionate Friends has been just as healing and life-changing as my mom promised me it would be. I also was able to learn the best way for me to navigate my grief, my pain, my anger, and all that comes with this journey. I worked hard those first few years by realizing that my journey was not that of my parents' generation. I knew so much about the world of grief through my hospice work and Compassionate Friends that I wasn't going to stop sharing my loved ones ever. I talked about Joanna, I shared memories, I honored her in a new and different way, including the way I'm sharing her with you tonight. I talked about what wouldn't be and now couldn't be because she was no longer here. I cried over the fact that I would never be a grandmother. I was angry that she was taken from me because of a stupid medical error. I experienced jealousy of family and friends who had children and grandchildren when I did not. Then, when I knew it was time to get on with the fact that my loved ones were no longer physically here and my life was still worth living, I decided it was time to be grateful for all that I did have and became a trained facilitator for the 3 chapters of Compassionate Friends at that time here in New Hampshire. I wanted to help others by being an example of hope to those that have also lost loved ones. I continued to work in hospice until 2012 and as a facilitator until the pandemic hit. I just recently returned as a facilitator for the Manchester chapter. As a facilitator, I continue to do my best to share my experiences of coping with grief. Most of us think that grief is what is happening in the painful period following the death of our loved ones. However, grief can come with any event that disrupts our sense of normalcy, such as, but not limited to, a marriage, a friendship, your home, your job, your financial stability, or good health. How do I know all of this to be true? It is honestly because they are all true for me. I have suffered all of those losses in my 69 years. I wasn't shy about sharing my trials, losses, or victories. And because of my training, I knew that the best way to deal with any kind of loss was to talk about it, share it, and give it a voice. For example, I've never stopped talking about my dear Joanna because I know it's important to speak the name of your your loved one. Or say the name of someone else's, as it's truly the greatest gift you can give someone grieving. It helps them to know that their child, sibling, or grandchild still matters. It has now been 15 years since Joanna died, and I have had many people tell me that because I'm so willing to share Joanna and her stories and memories about her, that even though they have never met her, they feel like they know her. Since I feel in my heart it is my job to keep her alive by sharing her, hearing that is extremely validating and the greatest compliment I could get as a bereaved mom. Recently, I was afforded the opportunity, with the aid of the National Compassionate Friends Organization, to continue my grief work by taking the world-renowned grief expert David Kessler's Grief Educator program and became a certified grief educator. David really spoke to me, as his dream is the same dream I've had for many, many years, which is to reach enough people in the world to turn our grief-denying society into a grief-accepting one. Now, how amazing would it be if grief were no longer an unspoken, frightful, and unsupported process? What would our world be like if when we suffered an unthinkable loss, we would be surrounded by loving, caring, supportive people who could validate our loss, our pain, and our loneliness? What if we knew we would actually have those around us be available to really listen to us without judgment and advice and trying to fix us? What if we were celebrated for our continuing process of grieving without being told, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, it's been 5 years, you're not over it yet? How would it feel to have others know and believe that truly there is no end to the journey called grief as we know it? I believe for me, if there was an end to that journey, then there would be an end to speaking about my Joanna and all my loved ones that have gone on before me. I don't know about you, but I'm not okay with that. I am so honored to have shared my heart with you tonight. I dearly hope that I was able to give you some comfort knowing you're not alone in your grief, as there are many people here that would be honored to walk with you as I would be. I also pray that I have maybe given you some space to see that there is hope, that you can find your path to peace again. And know, though, if you are not ready to feel that hope, I and many others here will hold it for you. I would love to hear from any of you who would like to be part of changing how the world sees grief and how that would benefit your journey. I'd like to thank the Manchester Steering Committee for giving me the honor to share my journey with all of you tonight. Before I say goodnight, I would also like to thank my 5 biggest blessings for supporting me unconditionally through my journey. They are my sainted husband and rock, Peter, and the 4 very special people that because of Joanna are now our family and our world. They are her fiancé Nathan, her dear friend and now Nathan's wife Haley, her bestie since high school Nicole, and Brenda, their 3rd musketeer. I have one last request of all of you before I leave the podium tonight. Let's all say their names out loud. Joanna and John and Lisa. And if you could say your family's name, that would give me really, really good feeling in my heart. Can you say their names out loud? All together at the same time? Thank you. And thanks again for letting me share with you.